Um, Somebody is afraid of a rematch. Now, exactly 1 year from now, we will all be gathered for Thanksgiving of next year. In addition to the traditional thanks offered for family, friends, and loved ones, and how many will be thankful for the outcome of the 2024 presidential election, which will be just about 3 weeks in the rear view mirror. Now, among those trying to become their party's nominee, both Joe Biden and Donald Trump appear to have the inside track to set up a rematch of the 2020 election. Now, should Trump lose, we obviously know what will happen. He'll claim that it was the work of those involved in dastardly deeds against the country and that he was the victim, which he's not. We are likely to see more violence and more bloodshed in a country that bathes in it, and then sometimes it is nearly impossible to believe that everyone alive was the sperm that fucking won the race. Um, Now, this is what comes to mind every time that I interact with Republicans who remain nothing more than who remain nothing more than evidence of the randomness of life and the scarcity of intelligence. Now, the names Jordan, Boebert, Green, Trump, and a host of others stand prominent in the low lives of American politics, or as President Joe Biden said of Representative Lauren Boebert in Pueblo, Colorado, Wednesday, Boebert and certain members of the Republican Party represent a massive failure when it comes to thinking. As Tip O'Neill once said with a withering criticism about Republicans, he basically said, I hold them in the highest minimum regard. President John F. Kennedy, back in 1962, appeared in Louisville, Kentucky, and he infamously said, are we going to be the people that drift along with the majority of the members of the Congress saying no to every proposal that we put forward and having none of their own? Can you tell me one single fucking piece of constructive legislation that has been suggested in the last 30 years by the Republican Party? Because I can't name a fucking policy that they had that actually benefited anybody. I could tell you what they're against, but what the fuck are they even for? 81% of the members of the House of Representatives on the Republican side voted against aid for higher education. The Louisville Courier Journal reported. This means that the GOP has suffered through nearly a century of thoughtlessness. Now, Trump is well known for his massive failure when it comes to thinking also. His former vice squatter Mike Pence, as reported by NBC News recently, told us all about Trump's failures running up to the January 6th Klan insurrection that he instigated. Now, Trump surrounded himself with what they refer to as crank attorneys, espoused un-American legal theories, and he almost pushed the country toward a constitutional crisis, according to sources familiar with what Pence told investigators. Now, Pence said he grew very concerned when and within days of the election that Trump began ignoring the advice of credible and experienced attorneys inside the White House. Instead, he relied on outside attorneys like Rudy Kaludi and Sidney Powell, who pushed notions of widespread election fraud, and as Pence allegedly told Smith's team, did a great disservice to the squatter and a great disservice to the country. And no court, even those populated by Trump-appointed judges, they have not found any evidence of election fraud in 2020. And what we're staring at now is a divided country whose politics have long been fractured. And the final straw is Donald Trump. Mick Mulvaney, who served as the director of the Office of Management and Budget during the Trump administration, had wrote in The Hill this week that his guess was that it was a gradual trajectory from normal to whatever it was that of what we have today, and which feels like a weird alternate universe. He also said U.S. politics more closely resembles a bad Hollywood screenplay than a competition to govern the world's most important nation. Now, I think Mulvaney, he reminds me of a Herb Tarlick that worked in WKRP News in Cincinnati, and he would make basically he would make an excellent used car salesman. He's also a cheerful sort, but his assessment of American politics leaves a lot to be desired. Now, it isn't a bad screenplay. It isn't a weird alternate universe, but it is the United States of America, where many people don't vote and they won't take responsibility for their actions. Now, this allows the tyranny of the minority, and allows many people. Basically, the best way to put it allows people, many of us, would never want to speak with publicly, to become public representatives. Now, further, those who don't vote are among those who scream the loudest about the election results. They see a deep state that usurps all the authority vested in the people, and still they didn't vote. So if you don't vote, you don't have a fucking right to bitch. We do not get better because we don't put more effort into the work, but American politics is a study in the lowest common denominator. Like Donald Trump, Lauren Boebert, and Marjorie Trader Green remain the greatest examples of that fucking study. Coming up in 2024, we are staring at two senior citizens jockeying to become squatter and one president. If the if the actual tables are to be believed, they probably won't survive the 4-year job for which they're trying to get elected. Now, worse, one of those running for office is Donald Trump. Now, there are Democrats, Republicans, and Independents who want to make sure that Trump never comes back to power because he should never have had it in the first place. It isn't, as Trump claims, because he's been hounded by political wolves. It is merely because Trump is a lonesome piece of shit. He has no class, no tolerance. Nothing of joy is derived from him unless it is at the expense of others. And those who have had the misfortune of being associated with him, and anything from friendship to kinship, and they end up being grease for the engine, grist for the mill, and they're run over by the Trump bus. Now, in her new book, Oath and Honor, due out next week, Liz Cheney talks about a conference call in which she gave a first-hand account of the planning of the January 6th Klan attack. Now, in an exclusive report, it exposes Trump's actions and also raises questions about the integrity of the Republican Party and its commitment to the rule of law, because they do not follow any rules anyway, and they don't follow the law. The problem here is that there are too many people in the Republican Party like Lee Grant and Ransom for a Dead Man, the second pilot for Columbo, as Peter Falk's titular detective Lieutenant Columbo explains to her. You have no conscience, and that's your weakness. Did it ever occur to you that there are very few people that would take money to forget about a murder? It didn't, did it? I knew it wouldn't. No conscience limits your imagination. You can't conceive of anybody being any different than what you are, and you are greedy, he explains. That is the Republican Party today. We have met the enemy, and he is us, Walt Kelly's Pogo told us. Now, on the other side, we have the incumbent President Joe Biden. He's made positive strides with such little drama that many are convinced he's done nothing. His detractors are convinced of worse. They claim he's either crooked or sleepy, and often both, and always called by the MAGA crowd the most corrupt president in our lifetime. If you want to talk about the most corrupt person, that would be Trump. They believe he's a man who didn't win, even though he did. Didn't win the last election, and may or may not be a foreign spy owned by a variety of shady and national and international players straight out of a bad James Bond movie. So Mick got that part right. The same people will note that comparing Biden to Trump sounds like a bad skit on a Saturday Night Live sketch. But here we are, and right now, plenty of people are questioning that Biden can pull out a victory again. And no is the answer being repeated on social media and on several media reports that reference recent polls. The question is why. As it turns out, his age and energy are a factor, and it ignores the facts in the future. If it comes down to Biden versus Donald Trump, I doubt there is little reason for those other than the diehard Trump sycophants to vote for a man who talks openly about dismantling the Constitution. And the question is, can Joe Biden energize the rest of the country out of their stupor and vote next year for him? I understand Biden's belief that he should run again, but I'm really concerned about the future of both parties. But what in the fuck ever happens between 2 years from now? How's the future going to look for the Democrats and the Republicans? Now, sure, Trump is an enema to the democratic process and gives people like Jordan, Boebert, and others the freedom to embrace their worst angels. But none of those people have a following that would get them elected nationwide. They are so overwhelmingly hated by even others like themselves that a national run for office is laughable for almost every Republican other than Trump. And some who would vote for Trump happily say that they can't stand the man but remain faithful that he'll drain the swamp, which he never did. And it reminds me of an infrastructure week during Trump's tenure, long on promises and short on delivery because he did not deliver anything. Now, on policy, the difference between Trump and Biden boils down to their difference of opinion on something very simple. Wind energy, as expressed this week, while Trump apparently hates wind energy, Biden does not. Trump said that wind energy causes cancer, and it was bad for whales. I guess there are a lot of whales on top of cliffs and in fields, and birds kill, and that kill all the windmills kill all the birds. And I said I know more about wind than you do. No, he did not. And he basically said this on numerous occasions while also describing it as glitchy, pricey, and a fraud. Now, Biden, on the other hand, supports wind energy, and he showed up on Wednesday in Colorado to speak at the world's largest wind turbine factory, touting his administrative efforts to support and expand American productivity on this. That's in a nutshell, and the two leading candidates for the highest office in the land. But do not forget this: there are several Republicans who've yet to throw in the towel, though they've tossed their hats in the ring. Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina, just got an endorsement and lots of money from the Koch brothers. Ron DeSantis, the current governor of Florida, while floundering is still around, as is Vivek Ramaswamy, even though his political director recently quit to join the Trump team. Why work for Darth Maul when Darth Vader is around? The Democrats also have a few people in the race, though none of them appear to have a chance of winning. Then we have the independents. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a closet Republican in disguise, and he's in the race and gargling a box of razors. Joe Manchin, who gargles Democrats, is also eyeing an independent run for squatter. And those are just two candidates who could have a large influence on next year's Thanksgiving table blessings. But the real question is, and it remains, it is one that we cannot dismiss lightly. Will either one of the front runners for the office win, and what is their chance of survivability for the next 4 years? Now, Biden does have the edge, not only because he's more healthy and also more competent than because he is more healthy than Donald Trump, but it's also because he's not mentally compromised like Donald Trump is. Each week, Trump exposes his lunacy even more because his many criminal charges are scaring him straight into oblivion. That's ultimately good for Biden and the Democrats because there are only a few, if any, other Democrats sitting on the bench who could run for president successfully right now. And while the early useless polls indicate Biden trails Trump, I for one still have doubts that Trump will ever be on the ballot for next year. The greatest threat to the country right now is the Republican Party, or even what's left of it. Basically, the Republican Party is filled with seditionists, greedy despot wannabes, and no one that appeals to the majority of the voters, despite what Haley, Trump, or DeSantis, or what anyone else says in the party says. As an author once said, I believe Trump is destined to fail in his effort to be reelected, and he would go down in history as the unwept, unhonored, and unsung. And right now, the only declared candidate who can do the job is Joe Biden, but things can change. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. You can go ahead and leave a comment, let me know what you think. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a little as a few bucks a video or a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.